Welcome to Reddit Stories, where OP's sister-in-law steals her cat. Am I the jerk for banning my sister-in-law after she stole my cat? This happened last weekend, and I'm still furious about it. I, 31 female, and my husband, who's 33, have 6 cats. Yes, 6. Their names are Bear, Billy, Valley, Callie, Toby, and Tony. They're all rescues, and they are our babies. We take excellent care of them, and they are extremely loved. My sister-in-law, who's 29, has been talking lately about wanting a pet. She's never had one before and doesn't seem to understand what it takes to take care of an animal. A few weeks ago, she started making comments about how lucky calico cats are and how she wanted one just like Callie. Then she started saying we had so many cats, we should let her have Callie. I told her absolutely not. Our cats are family, and we're not rehoming one just because someone thinks they're cute or lucky. I even offered to go with her to adopt a cat. There are plenty of calicos out there who need good homes. But she waved me off and just kept joking about how maybe she'd just sneak Callie out one day when we weren't looking. I thought she was kidding. This past weekend, we had a family gathering at our house. Everything went fine, but later that night, when everyone was gone, we noticed Callie was missing. We checked the whole house, then the backyard, then the front yard. No sign of her. I had a sick feeling and asked my husband if he thought his sister might have taken her. He said he didn't think she would actually do something like that. But I pulled up our security camera footage anyway. Sure enough, there she was, walking out of our house with Callie in her arms, putting her in her car and driving away. I called her immediately. She picked up and sounded completely casual, saying she was just borrowing Callie for a bit and was planning to bring her back in a few days. I told her if she didn't return her right now, I was driving over and banging down the door myself. She told me to relax, said I was overreacting, but finally agreed to bring Callie back. She showed up an hour later, handed Callie over like nothing had happened, and acted like I was making a big deal out of nothing. I told her straight up that she's no longer welcome at our house. That kind of betrayal is not something I take lightly. My husband tried to get me to calm down, saying at least she brought Callie back, and maybe she didn't understand how serious it was. But I'm not budging. She stole from us, and not just an object, a living animal who trusts us and depends on us. Now my in-laws are asking me to let it go since no harm was done, but I don't see it that way. So, am I the jerk for banning her from our home, even though she returned Callie? Not the jerk. She literally catnapped your cat. That's not a misunderstanding. It's not a joke. That's straight up theft. I don't care if she returned Callie later. She violated your trust in a huge way. Pets are family, not party favors you borrow without asking. Honestly, you showed more restraint than most people would have. So this woman actually walked into OP's home and stole her cat? That's not just crossing a boundary, Reddit boy. That's leaping over it and building a house on the other side. I mean, how do you even try to play that off? I was just borrowing your living animal without permission? And people wonder why trust is so hard to earn. It's because of moments like this, when someone treats something that's precious to you like it's a vending machine prize. Am I the jerk for not accepting my sister's relationship with my ex, despite her having cancer as a teenager? I, 25 female, grew up with my stepsister who's 23. I was 4 when my dad married her mom and she was 3. We shared a house, the same schools, chores, birthdays, etc. I saw her as my real sister and we were extremely close. When she was 14, she got cancer. It was a long fight that stretched for about 2 years. She went through surgery, treatment, and all the fear and uncertainty that came with it. She did make a full recovery, but those 2 years changed the rhythm of our household. My parents became strict, protective, and watchful. And since we were close in age, I got pulled into that world too. They asked a lot of me. I quit my extracurriculars so I could work, and the money went into her medical bills. I drove her to most appointments because our parents were juggling work and hospital meetings. Whenever I had something fun planned, she needed to come too. I didn't complain about most of it. She needed support and she was my sister. I only fought them once when they made me quit the volleyball team. I had a moment where I pushed back and they punished me for it. Looking back, one outburst during that whole time feels pretty calm for a teenager who watched every part of her routine disappear. Life moved on. I graduated and went to college. That's where I met my ex, who we'll call Ben. We clicked fast. Junior year turned into dating. Dating turned into living together once we graduated. We built a routine, made plans, had our little traditions. For 3 years, I believed we were solid. Then July came along. I walked into our bedroom and I saw him with my sister. I'll leave it at that. That was it for me. He moved out a few days later. We talked, but nothing in that conversation was worth trying to patch up. My sister apologized at first, then kept her distance. I thought she was giving me room to breathe. She wasn't. Last week, she asked to meet up. We sat in a restaurant that I used to like. She told me she and Ben were in love. She said they wanted to start posting pictures together and wanted to let me know first. She called it a courtesy, like that would make it lighter. I left her in the restaurant by herself without finishing my drink. She later sent me a request for my part of the bill through Venmo. She told our parents. They called me to their house and told me they were disappointed in me. They said she never learned proper social etiquette because of her cancer years and that she has trouble meeting people. They expected me to understand. But I've seen her socialize for most of her life. She's not shy, awkward, or struggling. And if we're using the logic of those years to explain behavior, then by that standard, I should have the same gaps. That excuse didn't land for me. They pushed again and said if I didn't support her relationship with Ben, they might have to go no contact with me. I reminded them that I'm their daughter too. They stayed firm and said this was jealousy on my end. For the record, I'm not jealous. I'm sad about losing my relationship and hurt by the betrayal, but I don't want to cheat her back. I'm upset that my sister did this, that she knew the relationship I had with him, that she went behind my back and kept going with him, that she chose him over me and she's still choosing him over me right now. My parents aren't talking to me. My extended family is sending me messages calling me selfish and worse. I didn't think my life would turn into this. I thought the years I spent helping my sister through her worst season meant something. I believed it brought us closer. I believed loyalty ran both ways. Right now, I feel like I imagined all of that closeness, and I was the only one who believed in it. Am I the jerk? Edit. The response here surprised me. I'm trying to read everything, but it's overwhelming in a good way. I do want to say something. I never thought my childhood was awful. The favoritism started when my sister got sick. Before that, the house felt pretty normal. I moved out as soon as I could, and I built a pretty independent adult life. I've had moments of resentment, sure, but I didn't see those years as my parents abandoning their responsibilities or treating me as less than. A lot of you pointed out things I'd never framed that way, which gave me a lot to think about. I always believed I did the right thing for my family and for her, and honestly, we were close during those years, and we tried to make things as normal as possible. It wasn't all sad. But reading others' perspectives on it has really opened my eyes to things I didn't consider. Thank you for making me feel less alone during all of this. Update. Sometimes all you can do is laugh. I just got off the phone with my cousin who saw this post and said he could explain a few things. I asked why he was on Reddit instead of going to school. He asked why I was on Reddit instead of working, and I said touché. He told me that after my talk with my mom, she went straight to his house and talked to my aunt. That's when everything came out. Turns out, my sister isn't just with Ben. She's 4 months pregnant, which means whatever was going on between them started a lot earlier than I thought. My parents are pushing so hard for me to forgive her because they don't want anything to ruin their excitement over their first grandchild. So yes, I'm apparently less important than my stepmom's plans to post ultrasounds online. This is where things are now. I ended up calling out of work for the rest of the day. I'm planning to drink a lot of alcohol, like a lot, and then sit down and figure out what I'm supposed to do next. Update 8 days later. I reached out to my sister and asked her to meet me at a park. No restaurant and no bill. I asked her if she was pregnant, and she told me the truth. She said she still wanted me in her life. She said she wanted me in the baby's life. Someone online guessed that she had asked me to be the godmother. That guess turned out to be right. She said she wanted that too. A lot of people here pointed out that if I stayed in her life, I'd probably become her built-in babysitter and her second wallet. And when I let myself sit with that, it felt true. I took care of her as a kid. I supported her through her hardest years. And now she wanted me to step back into that role all over again. So I told her I couldn't be in her life anymore. She cried on the bench. I walked away, feeling like the world's worst person, even though I knew it was the right decision. After that, I emailed my parents. I told them how deeply I felt betrayed. I told them I was cutting contact. My stepmom apologized. She said she never thought my sister would live long enough to have a family, and she let her emotions take over. I can understand that. My dad didn't say anything. That silence hurt more than anything else. Ben tried messaging me from a burner account, and I blocked him without opening it. I didn't go public with the story. I just emailed the extended family I cared about. Some people took sides, which was expected. I appreciated the support, but I didn't want it to turn into some dramatic battle. That drained me even more, so I stepped back from everyone. I feel lonely. I feel low, but I'm confident that I made the right choices. And if anyone near Boston needs an extra guest at Thanksgiving, I'm free. What your family did was not love. Real love doesn't ask you to give up years of your life for your sister, then toss you aside when you're no longer convenient. You didn't just support her during her illness, you held the whole household together. Now, the people who should defend you are acting like you should accept a betrayal without reacting. That's not normal. You're allowed to be hurt that your sister chose your partner over you. That's being human. Your parents aren't trying to stay neutral. They're choosing whatever helps them pretend this grandchild is coming from a normal situation, even if it means losing you. This isn't on you. You're the only one in this story behaving with any real integrity. Your sister didn't do this because she lacked social skills. She made a choice. Your parents don't want to face that, so they're creating a softer story where you're the unreasonable one. If they admit your hurt is real, they have to admit she crossed a line no sibling should ever cross. It's easier for them to call you dramatic than to admit they missed the signs or look the other way. Cutting contact was the right move. It's not cruel. It's you finally protecting yourself instead of keeping everyone else comfortable. You deserve a family who shows up for you the way you showed up for them. Stepping back hurts, but it's the only way you'll find any peace going forward. Update 18 days later. I'm spending Thanksgiving with a friend and her family. I won't be alone, which is something I'm grateful for. The messages I got from strangers offering a seat at their table were incredibly kind. I'm still not in touch with my family. I've tried to keep my distance from anything involving my sister and Ben, but every now and then something slips through. The only reason I know they're having problems is because Ben came to my place one night and cried for 3 hours straight. He wanted to talk about how stressed he was at home, but I didn't really let the conversation go anywhere. I wasn't going to be his emotional support while he was building a family with my sister. I'm trying to move forward with my life, so I planned a trip to New Mexico for April. It felt nice to have something in the future to look forward to, something that was mine and not tied to anything in my past. Happy Thanksgiving to those who celebrate. Update 2 months later. I think my old ex sabotaged my relationship with my new ex. To keep the background short, the breakup with my first ex, who I'll call X1 here, I called him Ben in my previous posts, last summer was rough. He's now expecting a baby with my stepsister due soon. Since the pregnancy came out, he's tried to contact me more than once. He emailed, texted, made burner accounts, tried to use mutual friends, and even showed up at my place. The only time I talked to him was that night that he cried for hours. Every other attempt I ignored. I hadn't dated much after that breakup because my life felt too chaotic. But in November, a guy from my college friend group messaged me. We hadn't talked for a while. He, referred to as X2 for the rest of this post, and X1 used to be friends, but they had a falling out over something silly related to fantasy football. I stopped talking to him out of loyalty at the time. I didn't realize how odd that decision was until recently. We decided to meet up. It was comfortable. He knew parts of my life from years ago, but not enough to make things complicated. We went on a few more dates. Things moved slowly, but in a good way. By early December, we agreed to be exclusive. I hadn't felt hopeful about dating in a long time, but he made me feel like maybe I could move forward. Then, New Year's Eve happened. We were supposed to meet at a party. X2 got there first and texted me that X1 was at the same place. He asked if I still wanted to come. I decided not to and went to another friend's house instead, and I had a nice enough time. I tried calling him at midnight, but he didn't answer. I didn't think much of it. When I woke up the next morning, I had a message from him saying that we were done. Before I could respond, he blocked me everywhere. I asked a friend who was at the party if he saw anything. He said the two of them talked for a while, but he didn't know what about. I'm not close with anyone else who was there, so I don't have more information. Part of me wonders if X1 said something that pushed X2 away. Another part of me doesn't want to become paranoid about something I can't confirm. What I do know is that X2 has made it clear he doesn't want contact. I thought about asking X1 if he said anything, but that feels like opening a door I've already locked. I also don't want to spread gossip by asking around too much. It's strange. It was a short relationship, so I'm not devastated, but the way it ended left me unsettled. It made me afraid that my ex is going to sabotage every future relationship I try to have. Update 2 weeks later. I'm beginning to think there's something wrong with me. I'm trying to make sense of the last couple years. It feels like things keep piling up, and I'm starting to wonder if I'm the common denominator. My last 2 partners cheated on me. The first one was the person I thought I'd build a life with. We lived together. We talked seriously about marriage and a house. He once took old childhood photos of us and edited them together to imagine what our future kids might look like. The result was creepy, but it made us laugh so hard I saved it as my phone background for a month. Then I walked in and I saw him with my stepsister. Now she's pregnant and they're together. I know he's not happy. I know he regrets a lot of it. I know he loved me. None of that stopped him from choosing her and lying to me during the entire process. For a long time, I focused on her betrayal because she and I grew up together. But now that some months have passed, I find myself thinking about him more. We chose each other. That's something I can't say about my sister. And he still crossed the line anyway. Then another guy came into my life. He seemed like someone I could build something steady with. We weren't in love, but I could see us getting there. We agreed to be exclusive. I told him about my past and said I couldn't go through another situation like that. He said he understood. Then New Year's Day came and I woke up to a text saying we were done. When I tried to reach him, I realized he had blocked me everywhere. Later, I found out that he met someone at the party he went to that night and hooked up with her. Instead of being honest, he blocked me and had someone else message me weeks later with the real story and a weak apology. And now I'm here, sitting with thoughts I don't want to have. I'm not angry, I'm just tired, and I'm scared that maybe something about me makes people leave. I'm an adult with a stable job and a decent life. People used to tell me I was fun, and I believed them. Lately, I feel like I'm fading into the background. I stopped speaking up in group conversations. I stopped putting effort into how I present myself. I don't plan anything because I don't want to be disappointed again. I'm almost the same age my mom was when she died. I never even knew her, but I grew up hearing that she lit up every room and had this warm and joyful energy. In my worst moments, I wondered what would happen if I disappeared right now. Who would even show up? Who would care? I know these thoughts aren't productive. I know they're coming from a place of exhaustion, but it's been hard to shake them. Anyhow, sorry for writing a novel. Just not sure what to do anymore, who to talk to. If you read this whole thing, thank you. There's nothing wrong with you. You went through 2 betrayals back to back, plus your family choosing the easier story instead of choosing you. Anyone would feel drained after that. You're not fading. You're hurt and exhausted, and that takes time to recover from. Both guys cheated because they lacked character. That's on them. Your sister made her own choices too. None of that points to you being unlovable. You showed up for people who didn't show up for you. You won't feel this low forever. You just need space, support, and people who treat you the way you deserve. You're not alone, even if it feels like it right now. You've been hit with too many losses in a short time, and your brain is doing what brains do when they're overwhelmed. That doesn't mean something's wrong with you. 2 men cheated because they wanted the easy way out, not because you were lacking. Pulling back from people is a normal reaction when you've been hurt. It doesn't mean you're disappearing. It means you're tired and need time to feel safe again. Please don't think you wouldn't be missed. You matter more than these guys ever showed you. You deserve kindness, stability, and someone who won't run the moment things get real. And you'll get there, even if it takes a while. Update 4 months later. I didn't end up going to New Mexico because I got sick the week before the trip. My sister had her baby. I haven't met the child and haven't spoken to anyone in my family since cutting ties. I've done a decent job keeping their updates out of my life. Nothing major has happened. Life kept going, and over the last few months, things just settled a bit. I haven't had some huge life change or met anyone new, but I did book a trip to Europe for October, so that's something positive. I do want to say this. I appreciate the support from strangers who reached out, but I don't want anyone sending anger toward my sister or Ben anymore. They're new parents, and I hope they're able to build a home that's stable and loving. Carrying hate around doesn't help anyone. Anyhow, that's the non-update update. I promise that if I meet the love of my life at the top of the Eiffel Tower, or more realistically while stuffing my face with waffles in Bruges, I will post another update. Until then, you can assume that I'm living, trying my best, and I'm very appreciative of all the people out there in the world who have read this saga and reached out with support, even if I haven't had the energy to respond to everyone. Update 1 year and 4 months later. I still get messages from people asking how I've been, so I figured I'd give an update. I woke up too early today and had nothing to do, so this felt like a good time. I'm doing well. That feels strange to admit, considering where I was last year, but I really mean it. I've made a lot of changes, and for the first time in a long time, I feel steady. I'm not in contact with my family. The final straw came last summer. My dad emailed me and asked if we could get lunch and talk. I agreed because a part of me still foolishly hoped we'd fix things. I got to the restaurant, ordered something small, and waited. 1 hour passed, then another. My server gave me a free dessert with a look that said more than words. I went home. Later, I got an email from my stepmom with what I'm sure were excuses, but I didn't open it. That moment made something click inside me. I realized that if I stayed where I was, I'd always be waiting for people who wouldn't show up. So I moved. I'd always been really scared to move away from my family, but since I don't have one anymore, I ended up somewhat spontaneously moving halfway across the country. It was a quick decision and expensive, but it was also one of the best things I've ever done. I reconnected with an old friend and I met her friend group, and they're some of the kindest people I've ever known. I feel safe around them, supported, like I don't have to perform or hold everything together. It also helps that the weather here isn't as humid. One of the people in our group is a counselor. She helped me find a therapist I actually clicked with. It took a few tries, and I didn't want to go through another round of someone handing me worksheets for cognitive exercises I never connected with. But the therapist I have now works with IFS. That kind of therapy helped me understand the parts of myself I pushed down for years. It's helped me unpack things I didn't even know I'd been carrying. I was also diagnosed with depression and started medication. That was hard for me at first because I always thought of myself as the person who stayed cheerful and took care of everyone else. I didn't want to admit that I needed help, but once I got through that wall, things started to change. I feel more grounded, more aware of what I want instead of only worrying about what other people need. I met someone too. I know there will be people reading this thinking my judgment around men isn't great. Fair enough. But this man is different. When I'm overwhelmed, he doesn't act annoyed or try to fix me. He'll sit with me quietly or suggest we walk. And when I'm really stuck in my thoughts, he'll start saying ridiculous things in a perfect Kermit the Frog voice until I start laughing. He spends a lot of time painting small Dungeons & Dragons figures, so I'm not exactly worried about him cheating. I've also invested in a Renaissance fair outfit that I never thought I'd own, but I'm having a great time. I think I'm going to marry this guy someday. As for my sister and Ben, the last I heard, they're still together. She tries to reach out once in a while using different accounts, but I don't respond. I still feel sad that I won't know my nibbling, and I do still miss my family, but I know stepping back is the right choice for me. Sorry I don't have any salacious info on them, since I know you're all ready to hear about their karmic downfall or whatever. No dramatic revenge story either. Just distance, healing, and a life that finally feels like it belongs to me. My life now is based on real peace, not pretending everything is fine. I'm not perfect. I still have things I'm working through, but I'm proud of where I am. I think my mom would be too. So that's the update. I'm pretty sure it'll be my last one on this account. Thank you for cheering me on through some of the strangest and hardest years of my life. I hope anyone going through something similar finds people who show them the same kindness that I've been shown. Update 8 months later. I'm engaged. Edit. For the people telling me not to reach out to my family with the news, don't worry, I wasn't planning on it. They already found out anyway because the internet never minds its own business. My dad is apparently furious because my fiance didn't ask for his permission. Oh well, not my problem anymore. I'm so glad you moved. Distance gives you the room to breathe and stops you from shrinking yourself to fit the version of you your family expected. You didn't deserve the way they treated you. They lost the chance to be in your life, and that's on them. Building a new support system takes courage, and it's clear you found people who value you for who you are. Your growth you've described is huge. You didn't just survive everything that happened. You built something better. You should be proud. Congrats. Her whole family chose a cheater and a Facebook announcement over their own daughter. They picked chaos, but she chose a whole new life and ended up happier than all of them. Yeah, she upgraded her entire life while they stayed stuck in their own drama. And now she's traveling, healing, and engaged to a really cool guy who makes her laugh on purpose. My boyfriend keeps making Game of Thrones themed negs towards me. Am I overreacting? We're both Game of Thrones fans, and I love to banter about it with Paul, who I've been dating for 2 months. I really like him and he's super sweet. However, his quotes are becoming really demeaning, and it feels like he's negging me. Am I overreacting? When we were at a friend's party, Paul said to a group, mainly consisting of my friends, "We have our differences, Sarah and I. She is braver, and I'm better looking." This was really embarrassing for me, because I think some of them didn't get the reference. Now I'm worried they think the guy I'm dating doesn't find me attractive. Another occasion was when we were kissing each other, and Paul whispered in my ear in a silly voice, "You have less honor than a back alley worker." I got really angry because I didn't recognize it was from Game of Thrones. I jumped up from the couch, and he said, "Chill out, it's a Game of Thrones quote from such and such episode." I told him I was really upset and was leaving his house. His response, "I'm Sansa Stark of Winterfell. This is my home, and you can't frighten me." And that was it. It felt like he had no remorse for what he had done and thought upsetting me was funny. I haven't answered his texts or calls since. It's been 2 days. Am I overreacting? Update. A mate of Paul's saw this post and he sent it to him. I no longer need to worry about whether I overreacted because I've been dumped. I might leave this up a bit longer just to annoy him, seeing as he's blocked me anyway. He messaged me on Facebook saying, "A friend has just linked me a post on Reddit's relationship page that you wrote about me. I get that you were upset by the joke I made, but you've handled this situation terribly. I'm disgusted that I was dating someone who would ridicule me and let 3,000 people bully me online. Blocking you forever now. Sorry that I upset you with my jokes. Not sorry about your insecurities that you're gonna have to live with." Update 2. Paul has texted me now saying he will unblock me on Facebook and won't block my number if I stop entertaining the post about him and remove it. He says he does think we should cool things off for a while, but that we can still keep in touch if we resolve this. Final update. Fast forward a month later, I saw Paul on Tinder. As a joke, I super liked him. He matched me back and messaged me with something really funny about the whole situation. We joked in a good-natured way, which eventually led to us hashing things out. We got back together and officially became boyfriend and girlfriend. The Reddit post became a quirky story that we mostly kept to ourselves, and it even became a running joke. Paul definitely lightened up after that experience and learned to take himself less seriously. Things were great when he moved into my place in December, but only for a week. Initially, we split costs evenly, but Paul started drinking a lot more coffee due to increased stress at work. He claimed he needed it to manage his workload, but also began buying expensive coffee and 2 takeout coffees daily, along with lunch every weekday. For a whole month, Paul claimed he had no money to contribute to groceries, leaving me to cover everything. Yet he continued buying coffee and lunches. When I confronted him, he said I needed to understand the stress he was under and how these things were his way of coping. I felt guilty and didn't push the issue. The worst part came during Christmas at my family's house. Paul brought his own coffee brand and declined my family's coffee, insisting on making his own. It was awkward and it felt rude. Later, we got into a huge fight about it. I told him he was being uptight and he accused me of nitpicking and said, "No one is perfect." On Saturday afternoon, Paul broke up with me. He said he had started shutting down emotionally after our Christmas fight and didn't think we had enough in common to continue. He packed his belongings and moved out that day. I'm heartbroken and haven't gone to work yet. I feel taken advantage of. I don't understand how someone's feelings could change so drastically after one fight. It's obviously over, but that doesn't make it hurt any less. It all feels so sudden. Didn't want to take the table, but it ended up being exactly what I needed. For context, I'm a 21-year-old college student. I was born and raised in the deep Midwest, basically Canada, but I currently attend school in the South where I work as a server 2 to 3 days a week. I've struggled with mental health issues my entire life, but the past few weeks have been especially difficult. One thing about depression is the constant feeling of being a burden, of lacking value, and just floating around through life without direction. Lately, those feelings have been stronger than ever. A part of me genuinely believes I'm not worth much. Even though I know that's not true, it feels very real in my head. I've been scraping by, and it's taken a toll on me at work. Anxiety and depression are like parasites. They latch on to small cracks in your mind, grow tighter and larger every day, and fester unless you fight back. I've been through these episodes before, and while I always manage to push through eventually, it's no less brutal each time. Because of this, I've been a shell of my usual self at work. Normally, I'm one of the more seasoned staff members, often serving as an emotional leader. Lately though, it's been obvious to everyone that something's wrong. In fact, last night, my manager asked if I was upset with him. I wasn't, I was just upset. Last night, I was on the closing shift. We were slammed until about 2 hours before close, but by 9:30, most of the closing tasks were done. The only thing left was to mop and wait for 11 p.m. to roll around. At 10:40, a group of 7 walked in. 6 of them spoke only Spanish, with one woman in the group able to communicate a little in English. As a Spanish minor, I've taken Spanish-speaking tables before, but I wasn't in the mindset to do anything other than clean and leave. It wasn't my turn in rotation, but I begrudgingly agreed to take the table because no one else would have been able to serve them efficiently. When I greeted them in Spanish, they were floored. I'm very obviously Midwestern. I look like your typical business school guy, despite not being in a frat. I've also been told I have a noticeable Midwestern accent. When I introduced myself in Spanish, they got excited and started smiling. I let them know the kitchen was closing in 15 minutes and asked them to get their orders in quickly. I grabbed their waters, and by the time I returned, most of them were ready to order. I helped those who weren't by translating the menu, and somehow I managed to get all their orders in within 3 minutes. My Spanish isn't perfect, and there were a couple of translation hiccups, but I could tell how much it meant to them to order in their native language. A couple of the guys even dapped me up after they ordered, and I realized how much they appreciated the effort. Their food came out correctly, and later, when they were taking a selfie, I offered to take the picture for them. Once again, they got excited and told me how much they appreciated me and how great I was. When it was time to pay, they asked for separate checks. No problem. I made sure to explain the automatic gratuity for large parties in both Spanish and English to ensure there was no confusion and to let them know there was no pressure to tip beyond that. On their way out, one of them told me they had gotten together in the States for a week and were all flying home the next day. They came from all over South America, Venezuela, Colombia, I could tell from the accents, Ecuador, and more. This was their last night together, and they thanked me for making it easier. They explained how challenging it usually is for them to dine out, but I had made it stress-free. That moment struck me. I'll never see them again, but I made a tangible difference in their lives. I wasn't just their server, I helped create a meaningful memory for them. This was their last activity together before parting ways for who knows how long, and I was part of making that night a positive experience. They all tipped in cash on top of the 20% gratuity. I told them it wasn't necessary, but they insisted, saying I deserved it. After they left, I finished closing the restaurant. While mopping, it hit me that serving that table was the first time in a long time that I had genuinely felt valuable and needed. That night out will likely become a story they share with their family and friends, the time a random college student made their last night together memorable by speaking their language. My Spanish wasn't perfect, but it got the job done. Life is strange. I didn't want to take that table. I was just trying to make it to the end of my shift, but by pure chance, they needed me and I needed them. Thinking back on it now, I can't help but smile at how everything unfolded, their faces lighting up when I greeted them in Spanish, the joy and connection we shared, and the kindness they showed me in return. I'm not writing this to pat myself on the back, I just did my job, but that table reminded me how even the smallest actions can have a profound impact on someone's life. So thank you, Table 41, who unknowingly helped me silence the voice telling me I didn't matter. In just half an hour, I went from feeling invisible to realizing how much I could still offer. It turns out, I needed them just as much as they needed me. Am I the jerk for accidentally revealing my boss's affair during the office Secret Santa exchange? I, 29 female, work in a small office where we always do a Secret Santa gift exchange. This year, I drew my boss, Rachel. She's always been incredibly kind to me, so I wanted to make her gift thoughtful. Rachel frequently mentions her husband and their shared love of hiking, so I decided to get her a nice pair of hiking boots and a gift card to an outdoor gear store. During the exchange, Rachel opened my gift, and I made a lighthearted joke saying, "Hopefully your husband doesn't already have these boots, or you two can match." Her face turned bright red, and the room became uncomfortably quiet. I assumed she didn't like the gift, or maybe found my joke awkward. Feeling a little embarrassed, I brushed it off and moved on. Later that day, one of my coworkers, Dan, who I'm casually friendly with, pulled me aside. He said, "You know Rachel isn't hiking with her husband, right?" I was confused and had no idea what he meant, so I asked him to explain. That's when Dan spilled the tea. Rachel has been having an affair with Steve, another manager in the office, and they've been sneaking away on hiking trips together. Apparently, this has been an open secret among a few coworkers, but I genuinely had no clue. It turns out my "match with your husband" comment unintentionally hit a nerve because now Rachel thinks someone has told me about the affair and that I was making a passive-aggressive dig. The fallout has been intense. Rachel has been noticeably cold towards me ever since, and Steve won't even make eye contact with me. On top of that, the office gossip has exploded, and I feel like everyone is whispering about the situation. Some coworkers have said I should have been more careful with my joke, while others believe Rachel and Steve brought this drama on themselves. I never intended to expose anything, but my innocent comment seems to have opened a huge can of worms. Not the jerk. You didn't know, and they brought this upon themselves. They're the jerks for apparently expecting everyone to play along silently with their affair. Unfortunately, the workplace politics consequences still probably won't play out in your favor, I'm afraid. Am I the jerk for telling my mom she won't be able to see my daughter for 2 months if she keeps complaining? My wife, who's 33, is currently 7 months pregnant with our daughter. This is her second pregnancy because she lost our first one, which was devastating for both of us, especially her. Understandably, she's anxious this time around, even though everything has gone well so far according to her doctor. She's finally starting to feel excited, but remains terrified that something could go wrong. She often asks me if I think everything will be okay and has been having nightmares about it. I've been doing my best to reassure her and stay positive, and I'm confident this pregnancy will have a happy ending. We live about 9 hours away from our families. The plan is for my wife's mother to come up when labor starts. She'll be there to support my wife during delivery and stay for about a week afterward to help us settle in. My wife has expressed that she doesn't want any visitors except her mom for the first few weeks after the baby is born. Once we're ready, she's happy for my parents to visit and even offered for them to stay in the guest room to spend more quality time with their granddaughter. I fully support her plan because I want this process to be as smooth and stress-free for her as possible given everything she's been through. Yesterday, my mom called to ask about the birth plan. I explained everything, and she said she and my dad would drive up as soon as my wife went into labor. While she didn't specifically mention being in the delivery room, she said she'd wait at the hospital and stay at a nearby hotel to spend time with the baby once we were home. I gently told my mom that while we're excited for her to meet the baby, we'd prefer if they waited a few weeks until we're settled. I explained that my mother-in-law is coming to support my wife during labor and recovery, which is why she's coming right after the birth. My wife feels more comfortable with her own mom, and having her there doesn't add any pressure to keep the house spotless or host visitors. I also emphasized that we want my parents to have plenty of quality time with the baby and assured her that it would happen once we're ready for visitors. My mom wasn't happy. She said she felt like the boy's mom always gets the short end of the stick and that everyone should be included in major milestones like the birth of a baby. The irony here is that my younger sister had her first baby about 6 months ago and has kept her mother-in-law at arm's length. My sister and my mom justified this by saying her mother-in-law is rude and difficult, which is true. Still, I find it hypocritical. I pointed this out to my mom, asking why it was okay for my sister to restrict her mother-in-law's access for 6 months, but not okay for us to ask for a couple of weeks. My mom got furious and claimed the situations were completely different because she's always been kind to my wife. When I asked what was different, she mentioned my sister's mother-in-law ruining her bridal shower by bringing obnoxious friends. I said that regardless, I want to prioritize my wife's comfort this time, especially after what she's been through. My mom seemed disappointed, but I thought we had reached an understanding. A few hours later, my wife told me my mom had called her. My mom was crying, saying she felt excluded and that we didn't want her to meet the baby. My wife is a people pleaser and took this to heart, becoming visibly stressed and questioning whether we were doing the right thing. I reassured her that this is about her comfort and well-being, and I promised to handle my mom from here on out. I was furious. The added stress is the last thing my wife needs right now. I called my mom and told her that if she contacted my wife about the birth plan again, she wouldn't see the baby for 2 months. I said I'd add an extra month for every additional call. While I meant it somewhat jokingly, I was serious about her needing to stop putting stress on my wife. My mom accused me of excluding her and my dad and said we were being unfair. Later, my dad called to say I was wrong to give my mom an ultimatum. He argued that I was using time with the baby as a form of control and punishing her for expressing her feelings. I explained that I wasn't trying to keep them from the baby, but I need them to respect my wife's boundaries, especially given her history. My dad insists I owe my mom an apology for threatening to delay her visit. Was I too harsh with the ultimatum, or is it justified given the circumstances? I disagree. But am I the jerk? Not the jerk. This happened with my mother-in-law. She showed up unannounced from across the country when I was on bed rest at 28 weeks with a twin pregnancy. Stressed me out so much and made my preterm labor worse because she did nothing to help, just criticized our decisions. We asked her to visit other local family instead because my mother was coming to help and we didn't have room for both. She was so offended that she went no contact with us and 28 years later has never met her grandkids. Her choice, not ours. Not the jerk. You're doing exactly what you're supposed to. You're supporting your wife and putting her first. That's called being a good husband. The reason your dad is saying you're wrong is that your mom is venting and he has to hear it. And do you know what that is? Not your problem. Keep on doing what you're doing. You're doing everything right. Am I the jerk for suing my neighbor after their kid trespassed and fell into my koi pond? I, 22 male, have a koi pond in my backyard. It's not just any koi pond, it's a professionally designed Japanese garden with a bridge, waterfalls, and koi that cost more than my car. I'm talking about fish that can cost upwards of $1,000 each. Maintaining this pond is my pride and joy. I've dedicated years to this hobby, and my yard is securely fenced with no trespassing signs clearly posted everywhere. Enter my neighbor, Karen. Karen has a son, let's call him Timmy, who's 8. He's notorious for wandering into other people's yards uninvited. I've spoken to Karen multiple times about this issue, but she just brushes it off with comments like, "Kids will be kids." Last week, while I was out running errands, I got a frantic call from Karen. Apparently, Timmy climbed over my fence to feed the fish, despite me explicitly telling both him and Karen to stay out. While doing so, he slipped and fell into the pond, destroying part of my carefully maintained ecosystem. Several of my prized koi died from the stress, and my filtration system was damaged by the debris Timmy kicked in. Luckily, Timmy wasn't seriously hurt, just a few scrapes, but Karen has been demanding that I pay for his medical bills. She claims my pond is an attractive nuisance and insists I should have had a cover or some other preventive measure to keep kids from falling in. I argued that 1, it's a private, securely fenced property, and 2, her son had no business being there in the first place. When I refused to pay, Karen lost it. She's been bad-mouthing me to the entire neighborhood, calling me heartless and a terrible person. In response, I filed a lawsuit against her to cover the costs of the koi, the damage to my filtration system, and repairs to my pond. Altogether, the expenses exceed $5,000. Some of my friends think I'm being too harsh, saying, he's just a kid. However, others agree that Karen should have been watching her son more closely. Am I in the wrong for taking legal action, or is Karen the one who crossed the line here? Not the jerk. She's an irresponsible parent and should not be allowing her 8-year-old to trespass into others' yards without supervision. You should absolutely be suing her for the damages to your property. She's insane to demand you pay for her son's medical bills. It was her duty to protect him. Arrogant teacher threatened to send me to the principal. I obliged. This was over a decade ago, so some details are foggy. Going into senior year of high school at a small rural high school where the smart kids all get sent off to the distance learning building their junior and senior year to take college courses. Junior year, the woman in charge of us in distance learning had been teaching at our school district for over 15 years. She knew us, our families, taught us in multiple grades, and coached about 3/4 of us in track or tennis. Keep in mind, our entire student body, K through 12, wouldn't have broken 500 kids, even if they padded the numbers with voluntary pre-K and GED students. She knew us, our antics, and generally trusted us to get our work done. She made sure we actually watched our classes and didn't get into a bind on our assignments. Outside of that, as long as we were doing something productive and had our main stuff done, our time was ours to use as we saw fit. In my case, it was mostly spent playing guitar and reading up on the playbook for whatever athletic competition I had that week. I was an academically good, but insufferably lazy student. Summer passes. First year of senior year comes around. The teacher we all adored had moved away. Her husband got a job somewhere else that paid big bucks. In her place is some tall, red-haired jerk that none of us had seen before. Turns out he's the new head coach for girls basketball and our new distance learning supervisor. Our college courses didn't start for a couple of weeks, so he spent the entire first day pontificating on how lucky we all were to have him, since he had spent the last 10 years in the university world and knew how it worked and would make sure we weren't just slacking off because we were seniors. The fact that he went from university to high school should have been a red flag to the people that hired him. Whatever. A couple of weeks go by of this coach, we'll call him Bob, making us do pointless practice assignments like writing a paper on respect in APA format or researching a new car for his wife while citing our sources, all under the guise of making sure we were prepared. The students all politely informed him that these courses were through a community college and were generally no more difficult than a normal AP high school class, except for the STEM courses. Fast forward 2 weeks and courses start. Finally, we thought. Bob's antics throughout the year would have been bearable had he not made a habit of insulting students who did something that wasn't to his liking, or held a political view contrary to the university culture he came from, which was all of us. He went to demanding that we all submit our assignments to him before our actual professors, which he then did not go through quickly, causing a great many of us to lose points for late assignments. We started ignoring this and sending him a copy at the same time we submitted the assignment, and telling us all that we were in no way mature enough for this kind of learning. We all had to maintain an institutional GPA of 3.0 or better to stay in the program. We averaged 3.8. And if it was up to him, he'd take our entitled butts right back over to the main building for real classes. The straw that broke the camel's back came at the end of the fall semester. We had all taken our finals, passed, and were looking forward to an easy few weeks. Bob came in that morning in a worse mood than usual. I found out years later this was the day his divorce proceedings began, and started going off on one of the students for how she was dressed. She ignored him, as did the rest of us. We were all just making it through to the end of the semester. Bob then began one of his speeches about how terrible and entitled we all were. No one was paying attention, which made him even more angry, but he knew he couldn't really punish us for anything. So he zeroed in on one kid that had been placed in the classroom for remedial learning as it was a quiet, consistent environment. He was the one student in the room actually working on something. The conversation will be paraphrased as this was over 10 years ago. It went as follows. Bob.
So, what are you doing?
Student, somewhat rudely. I'm trying to study for my test coming up so I don't get held back. Bob.
For what? So you can eventually go flip burgers at the Dairy Queen?
By the way, the student he was talking to now makes over 6 figures as a welder.
Please, you're not going to get it done anyway, so have some respect and pay attention when an adult is speaking.
That was it for me. You see, the student he was talking to happened to be my cousin. I was very familiar with his academic and personal struggles, and I knew how hard he was working to straighten up. Our family is a rather well-known and affluent one in our community, and this student was cruelly regarded as a mess-up by some folks outside of our family, despite his overwhelmingly kind disposition. Now, this jerk teacher was insulting the most vulnerable member of our class and my family. It was time to get this guy in the worst way I could think of without doing myself over too or getting arrested. You see, my mother had been teaching for 25 years in the district at that point, and my stepfather is a retired guidance counselor, so I knew the rules. I'd previously refrained from honestly discussing his conduct with my parents because Bob's daughter had actually become part of our friend circle, and I knew how hard life would be on her if her dad lost his job, as his reputation made her life hard enough. The college courses kids also all did theater and athletics together, so she was part of our life. Again, tiny school. Half the varsity offensive line was part of a district-winning production of Flowers for Algernon, and our star running back was also a regional qualifier in robotics. But she was graduating with the rest of us and going to school out of state, so collateral damage would be minimal. Knowing what would happen next, I casually remarked, "Coach Bob, it seems to me that if you knew half as much about basketball as you think you know about this student, you'd probably still have your job at the university. Or you would have got your contract renewed for another year at the last school board meeting. Where will you go after the school year ends?" The room went dead quiet. That info wasn't in the newspaper yet. Bob's face turned an absolutely vibrant shade of red. His voice shaking, he tells me, "Outside, now!" I calmly set down my book and stepped out into the foyer of the building. Bob followed me out, closed the door, and proceeded to scream every insult and word he could think of in my face for at least 4 straight minutes. I was the most smug, lazy, entitled little jerk he had ever seen, apparently. I may have been able to pull the wool over the eyes of my pastor, every other teacher, his daughter, and all of my coaches, who were constantly irritated with me for being lazy. But goodness, I couldn't fool him. I was never going anywhere in life, and I was just going to ride my family name like a parasite. To be honest, his lung capacity was kind of impressive. I don't think he took a single breath for the entirety of his rant. Once he stopped to catch his breath, I asked, "Coach Bob, may I go back to reading now?" Bob screamed.
No! Your butt is going straight to the principal. The student and I will write down exactly what you said, and you will sign the darn thing. Do you understand?
"Yes, sir. I'd be happy to sign it." Bob gave me a questioning gaze. "Actually, I'd be happy to go down to the principal's office. I need to ask him for a letter of recommendation for a scholarship. And of course, he will ask me what led to me saying something so disrespectful. Of course, I can't lie to him, and then I'll mention our little chat out here." By this point, the teacher in the other classroom, who I also happen to be related to, came out to see what the commotion was and heard at least the tail end of his glorious speech. She was about to say something, but I turned and gave her a smile and a wink. I had it in the bag. 18-year-old me was riding high. Bob sent me back into the distance learning room and followed me in. I stood by the door, awaiting my office referral. A minute went by and it never came.
Sit down, Jones.
"Coach Bob, I believe classroom insubordination requires an office referral."
If that's the way you want to go.
Bob's voice started to raise, but at this point, he understood his situation. He wrote up the office referral, and I walked happily down to the admin office. The principal was surprised to see me, and even more surprised that I was sent there on disciplinary action. I told him what had happened, and I got detention for 1 day as punishment for open disrespect of a teacher, which I kind of deserved, and a thank you for my honesty. The next 2 weeks were heavenly. Bob barely spoke a word and spent most of his time glaring at me or looking at job listings. At the start of the spring semester, he wasn't in distance learning. In fact, he was nowhere to be seen. Turned out, he had accepted a last-minute opportunity somewhere else before the Christmas break and had to move there in time for spring practices to start. What a coincidence. I found out years later that Bob was soon let go from his next coaching job and he had gotten divorced. Other faculty had apparently repeatedly complained about his conduct, and he was on incredibly thin ice long before my little stunt. Honestly, I kind of feel sorry for the guy after writing this memory down. Congratulations on everyone who made it to the end. Am I the jerk for calling the police on my fiancé? Last night, my 35 male, fiancé, 38 female, left in the evening to give a friend's son a ride to his home. She implied she'd be home before 9. She left at around 7:45. 10:15 rolled around and she still wasn't home. I texted and she apologized to me, saying that her friend's son was actually in the next town over, maybe 30 minutes away, and she was coming home now. 11:45 rolled around and she still hadn't come home, so I called her to no answer. Texted her, no response. I was getting very upset. 12:30 rolled around and still no response and no answer to my phone calls. I was extremely angry. 1:30 rolled around and my anger had completely transformed into worry. Not answering my calls and texts not read. Around 1:45 I called the police. I've always heard that the first 24 hours of someone being missing is the most important, so I didn't want to delay. I asked them to let me know if there had been any traffic accidents involving her car, and the operator told me that they would put out the word and send some cops to check along the route she would travel. I called all the hospitals in the area to check if she had been checked in, and I waited outside watching the road for her car for 3 hours, partially because I didn't want the kids to hear me on the phone with hospitals, and secondly because I was sick with worry. At 7 a.m. she came home. She apologized for being out and said she had no excuse. She was driving home and felt tired, like she was falling asleep at the wheel, so she pulled over to the side of the road to sleep. When she did that, she found that her brand new phone had stopped working. She says she napped anyway because it was the responsible thing to do, and then came home at 7 a.m. to bring the kids to school and get to work on time. I immediately called the police and told them that she had come home safely and gave them the case number and told them to stop searching, which they did. My fiancé brought the kids to school and left for work. I set out to start cleaning. Cleaning de-stresses me sometimes, and I got a call from a policeman asking me where she worked. I told him and asked why, and I was informed that it was their policy to check on the person's wellness after a missing person is found. I asked them to not go by her work, but to give her a call instead. He said he couldn't promise anything. My fiancé is relatively new to her job. A police officer showed up and asked to speak with her. She's now enraged at me for calling the police and sending a cop to her work and making her look bad. She's saying I overreacted and that she wasn't missing and that I was punishing her for doing the responsible thing and not driving while drowsy. She's saying that she is never going to leave the house again except for work because she's afraid I'm going to call the cops on her again. So, did I overreact? Should I have waited 2 days like she's saying I should have? Not the jerk, but you know she's lying, right? OP. I do suspect that her story isn't truthful, but she doesn't really have a history of lying to me, so I've been trying to give her the benefit of the doubt. No. Her whole story is a big fat lie. She told you she would be home by 9, but somehow was wrong about where the kid lived? Did she not know the town beforehand? Did she just start driving 30 minutes and then the kid goes, "Oh, no, wait, I actually live in XYZ"? That part of the story doesn't even make sense. So she ended up changing the time. Then she got tired and pulled over and napped on the side of the road? You do realize that if she had been napping in her car like she claims, the police would have found her, right? And then her new phone just happened to not be working, despite the fact that that simply does not happen. And even if it wasn't working properly, she still could have called 911. That's not even mentioning the fact that I don't know a single woman, myself included, who would pull over on the side of the road and sleep in her car with no phone. Imagine your boss demands you work weekends because you don't have a family. That's exactly what happens in our next story, the one that just popped up on your screen. Give it a tap, come have a listen. You won't believe what happens next.